I finally finished Bojack. My fans don't hate me that much because they finally voted to let me finish Bojack. Yeah, so again, I'm not going to talk about spoilers, or mostly going to be talking about spoilers. These were. The whole show is just so good, and this show just continues to, keep doing what it's been doing so far, but also really fucking well. Like, a lot of what I've been talking about before, it's still here, and it's still good, and I don't know, it's really good. So yeah, spoilers from here on out. To get some of the smaller stuff on, it's like, the animal jokes, the really good presentation. Like, they do a lot of interesting stuff, and they've continued to do that. Probably one of the more standout examples was the episode with Beatrice's funeral, where it's literally the whole episode is just Bojack talking about his mother at the funeral, and there's no cutaways, there's no flashbacks, there's almost no other characters you see. There's no named characters you see on screen except Bojack at any point in the episode. There's one point where it cuts, because it's just focusing on Bojack and the coffin, and at the very end, the punchline is really fucking good. But that whole episode, I was just transfixed. It's it's just a monologue. It's just Bojack talking about his mom and his last moments with his mom, and I couldn't stop watching it. It was just so engaging, even though it was just this. What were some other episodes? Oh, the second to last one in season 5, where he's unable to tell, but he's stuck between his reality as Bojack and his show as Filbert. Because I think I've talked about that before, where how Bojack, from the start of the show, he really he tried to live up to Horsing Around. He the show that it's perfect and it's escaping. He wanted that. He wanted his life to be that. He wished life that would be that easy. He's always been, but he's always been fake. He's always been lying, and which I contrast with Mr. Peanut Butter, who even though he's on TV a lot, he's a perfect fit for TV because he just is that genuine. So when a lot of the things he does that seem like they might be fake, he legitimately does believe it, or he's legitimately like that. So it makes sense that Bojack would kind of get to that point where he's unable to tell the difference between reality and fantasy. He's using the show, Diane talks it, to justify his own behavior, to take, see these messages and see oh yeah, there is this show with shitty people in it. That means that it's fine for me to be shitty, which, maybe that isn't in part a response to criticisms of Bojack Horseman. I'm not, I've seen no other discussion of the show. But I can see that, and the social commentary is still really good. What was a good one that I liked? Just with the accountability of celebrities, and when Bojack became a feminist, and he's oh, the real problem with feminism is that men weren't in charge before, and it's it's fucking funny. Another episode that had notable presentation for me was the one where Carolyn is taking care of Ruthie, and she's so busy. And I've done some babysitting, but I've never been in a position where I was just that stressed out and busy and having to juggle so many things at once. But the way they got that across with having just a bunch of Carolyns on screen, in different colors, sort of representing all the stuff she was doing or needed to do, and kind of compressing that time, along with the background music for which even including just the ticking, and it gave me it almost stressed me out a little bit, or it gave me a little bit what's the word? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it was when the episode quieted down, when Carolyn got her moments of rest, I felt relief when that happened. It's just really good presentation. There's the Halloween party episode where it's jumping between 4 different versions of the party, and we're seeing what hasn't changed and what has changed. And of course, the second to last episode, which we will get to, holy shit. The show is just clearly has some really talented creative people behind it, and there's a reason, it so clearly means a lot to a lot of people. because of the ways it's explored its ideas, and it gets very personal, and like I really like the show. It's very good. Like the way the last seasons just kind of like wrap everything up. Like I was kind of maybe I should have seen it coming, but like the way it goes back in a lot of ways, like you have Sarah Lynn and her death becoming a major story element again. It goes back to season 2 with Penny, Herb from season 1, and the original problem with Bojack, getting rid of him and continuing the show himself. Where the Angela Diaz comes in, and all the characters just get these really nice like conclusions. Like Diane is finally happy. She's no longer like defining herself by her like abuse and depression because she doesn't like she wanted to like she said she felt special that she had, or she was trying to make it out that it was special because she wanted to like like what was it all for? Why did I have to go through all of this? And she was kind of like fetishizing her damage, her sadness, right? Like she's comparing it to the broken pot that gets fixed with gold and becomes even more beautiful. But eventually, Carolyn says, "Why don't you just be happy? Or why don't you let yourself be happy? Just write the fun detective mall novel for girls and have your boyfriend." And Guy was nice, and Sunny. I like how like she meets a guy who has a son, and they're literally called Guy and Sunny. Like it's there's something just like the way the show can just be like really like on the nose and contrived, but just the fact that it's doing it is just super self-aware, and it makes it even funnier. Like the scene, like for the first scene where Sunny like Diane accidentally like makes him fucking cry, and she's like, "Your parents don't love each other," and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, Guy tells me all the time that they argue," and he's like, and then he starts crying, and Guy comes back, and he's like, "I was gone for 2 minutes." But then the later one where Sunny is like being really tsundere, where he read the book and he's trying not to say that he liked it. Like, she asked about it in front of his friends, and he's like, "Oh, stupid girl book," but then he gave it back to her because he took it away to read it, and then he had some like legitimate questions. And yeah, if you read a sequel, I can read it, or if you read a sequel, I can read it and tell you how much it sucks, I guess. But it's like they're connecting, and it's so good. And Diane's just in a good place, and she gets married, and it's I feel good for her. Peanut Butter. I like how they because like for some reason I hadn't even considered it. It's like, yeah, he's literally been the same person since the 90s, right? He hasn't grown up at all. And they observed, the reason his relationships fell apart isn't it's because like he hasn't changed. And he like, I was even worried like, wait, Peanut Butter makes all these girls into from fun people into bitter angry people. And so my thought was like, Peanut Butter's turning them all into, making them like this. But no, it's more just that they're growing up and they're getting older, and Peanut Butter isn't. He's exactly the same because, he's just a perfect fit for show business as it is. And so but he does have to learn up to grow and be fake. Like with Pickles, he had to learn to lie to her. And obviously like that didn't work out anyway. But he did even a little bit grow up, and so to speak, and being fake isn't all bad, especially when you're considering actors who like are paid to put on these performances. But of course, in Bojack's case, he goes way too far with it, right? Again, losing that sense of reality, even in season 5, especially. Todd was the one I was the most surprised with because like he has been like having his arc with like his asexuality and just being a leech. That's a bit harsh, but he's a couch surfer, right? Which is usually, I think, maybe I don't know what that word is usually used for, but my first thought was like surfing the television while sitting on your couch. But it's more like he just kind of floats from couch to couch. Maybe there's another term that I'm forgetting that might describe him better. But like, we finally find out what the deal with his family is. I love the episode where the parts with his dad where they like break into the White Whale place to get the kidney for his mom, and like he's using the racism of this big corporation in their favor. Like Todd tries to get in by pretending to be Diane, it doesn't work. So Jorge he pretends to be a janitor, and the guard just kind of like, okay, fine, come in. And it's like, oh, and the part at the end of that where the guard comes in and he just assumes Todd is like in trouble or being attacked or something by Jorge because he's Mexican and Todd is white, and he even says like, yeah, you know what, keep failing forward and falling upward in life because you're white. And it's like that, like that's how they frame it. It's like, oh god, okay. But he's able to get things settled with his mom, which goes back to fucking Margot Martindale, where she's like, because her path downwards was started because she sold Todd the game because Bojack wanted to keep him there and keep him in that low state in his life. And like, again, going back to like the self-awareness of it, where it's like, because I didn't even consider like, oh my god, yeah, Margot Martindale is having a character arc and it's getting resolved because she's just been this really like goofy, absurd character. But then it's like, oh, what, okay. And the court scene where it's like, the one lady comes in and he's like, yeah, I would love to see that movie, that you can be in, but you got a lot of people, so you're going to jail. And the last scene with Todd was really good with his last talk with Bojack. And yeah, back to Princess Carolyn, because she gets her baby. She's finally able to be the mom she wanted. She's able to balance her work and her home life. She's not, because when we get Judah came back, I didn't even realize how much I missed him until like the whole assistant union thing happened, and she sees herself in the assistants and realizes what she's doing and how she's becoming complacent with the system that she benefits from. And then so she calls the best assistant here to do the actual negotiations because Judah is so fucking good. And like he even turns around in his chair and there's like fucking halos of light behind him, and I'm like, yeah. It was so good. But then he gets with Carolyn, like he has his show, he has his personal life, and Carolyn's about to miss it because of her work, and then she pushes him to not be defined by his work life, while then eventually herself deciding the same thing. And they finally connect. He gives his awkward love song, and I'm like, yay. Princess Carolyn's so good. And yeah, of course I've been dodging around Bojack himself, like seeing him finally go sober was like after the bender he had with the pain pills. And god, especially the one scene where he was he couldn't get pills after his fucking weird adventure with Hollyhock, and so he just gets into a car accident so that he can get more pain medication. And he finally admitted that he needed help and that he wasn't able to solve all his problems. God, when Diane found out about Penny and the part where she fucking wrote his story into Filbert, because of course Bojack was already so close to the character that it was just like a perfect fit. And that was tied to the whole therapy stuff, where it's because that was the with the two ladies, who one of them was the counselor, or who was dealing with Carolyn and Todd, or that's not the right word, arbitrator, or I don't forget their business terms. And the other one was the therapist who was dealing with Diana and Bojack, and they told their story, but they changed the names. And it turns out they were talking that Princess Carolyn showed up in both of them, so they were able to sort of solve the issue by Diane changed the names of her story to try and get Bojack to admit that he needs therapy, in the most fucked up way possible. There's because Bojack was even saying oh yeah, you're just like me, right? Because they're friends, they're connecting, and they're both fucked up. And Diane took offense to that because she may be self-hating and depressed, but she's not as bad of a person as Bojack can be. But then in that anger, she kind of shows that maybe she and Bojack aren't as different as she wanted to think. Because of course, there's some level of good intent behind it, but again, wanting Bojack to admit that he needs therapy, but it's still in a really shitty, fucked up way by putting this really personal troubling thing in, again, like they even talk about it later when the newspaper reporters are digging into it, right? Because like nothing actually happened. Like it ruined his, relationship with Charlotte as friends, understandably, and he should never interact with these people again, but nothing happened in comparison to like the Sarah Lynn thing, right? And so her kind of putting it out there, it's I don't know, it's all kind of fucked on all on lots of sides. But yeah, even though Bojack like got better, like because they even keep mentioning like, oh, start from zero, and which is often responded to with like, I don't think that's possible, because like, yeah, Bojack does get his fresh start. He comes clean of his pills, of his alcohol, and his life, he's still haunted by his past. It comes back to him, and he ends up falling into alcohol again and drugs, and it's like, like, see, once season 6 started and everything's like going well, like Princess Carolyn's getting shit sorted out with her, baby. Diane has a new boyfriend. Like, I'm like, it's all gonna, where is it all gonna go bad? I know it's going to. And once the Charlotte stuff started coming up again, I'm like, oh, and Sarah Lynn, it's like, oh no, there it is. And then the last episodes. Okay, so the second to last one, possibly the best in the show. Like, I'm trying to think of what could, like, the last episode was also really good. I was asked about it earlier, and I think, like, Time's Arrow is another one that really stood out to me. But, like, there's so many good episodes of the show, it's hard, okay? But this one is, like, the way it kind of calls back to the whole series, we have all these characters. The fucking autoerotic asphyxiation guy is there, and like meaningfully contributing to the conversations and ideas that because it's all these characters who have died, or in Bojack's case, he's very close to death, and they're kind of going over their lives and mortality, and just in some cases, like where we get like Secretariat, who's also combined with Butterscotch, Bojack's dad, to sort of like be, because he's the father figure Bojack wanted, but also he's a broken idol in himself, and like you get all these different perspectives, and it's all framed as a show on a stage, which is so much of Bojack's life has been this performance, even again, the fakeness, and like I think the thing about that episode that really fucked me up and made me cry was at the very end, is because he remembers that he wasn't actually able to call Diane. He just left a voicemail, like he didn't actually reach her. And then he's talking to his imagined Diane on the phone, and he as far as he knows, he's about to die. Nothing matters, and he says, "But can we still talk?" Like if nothing matters, he still wants to maintain that connection, that friendship, and be with someone, and the person who understands him the best at that. Like going back to season 1, she wrote the book and got at Bojack in a way that no one else had before, really. And that hurt me. God, and the way the opening for the last, like the opening has always been changing, but how they like completely redid it almost for season 6, where it goes through all the seasons, but still has Bojack falling into the pool, like, it works perfectly. Like, it goes back to where it's always kind of been. Just like for his low point for the show, Bojack, he got clean, but then he went back to being a drunk who was taking a lot of medication, and nearly, it just goes back to where it was before. And like the way they were sitting at this table, and they're all eating their last meals, and Bojack's it's just a bunch of pills, and it was nice seeing it, like we already got so much Beatrice before, but we find like with Butterscotch as Secretariat, kind of he talked about how like he did love his family, but he kept them at arm's length because of his pride. Again, that toxic masculinity. That even came in with his death, where we find out he died. He was killed in a duel because he promised that he'd duel anyone who didn't like his book, that he did actually finally get published. And he was literally like, instead of actually just doing the duel, he like turned and asked, "Hey, what did you think about the book? Can you," like, he wanted to talk to someone about it, but then he tripped and died. And it's like, because of the duel, because of that, like, pride, that he just couldn't let go of. Which is what kept him out of his family. Oh, another thing about the dad that I noticed is actually, I think it was Flip was his name, the writer of Filbert, where he just reminded me a lot of Bojack's dad in a couple ways, in that how, like, he's a hack. I don't know, like, apparently, Bojack's dad's book wasn't well received, and Filbert was like, it was, all the character, until, like, Diane made changes, it was, considered not very good. But they were also both really, like, obsessed, or, convinced of their own talent, right? Like, again, Butterscotch was like, fight me if you think my book is bad, I will literally duel you possibly to death. Where Flip just kind of took everything, like there was some of the lines where he's like, yeah, everything that just happened, or to everyone who worked on the show, I'm glad I did such a good job. Like, fuck off. But yeah, and back to the last episode, like, the last conversation between Diane and Bojack, like, I just had watery eyes through like, the whole thing, almost, and because, like, the show started with them meeting, on a roof, of course, and this is their last, like Bojack even says, wouldn't it be funny if this is the last time we talked, and, like, it kind of goes through, like, how, all these characters they've met, they've changed each other so much, and they're, gonna drift apart. That's just normal for a lot of them. And, Peanut Butter's all his failed marriages and relationships. Bojack's in prison now. And so, like, I don't know. Like, what I thought about, though, was, I guess there's, like, two ways you can maybe read, especially the silence at the end. Because during the Halloween episode, when Bojack and Diane, like, this was, like, their first meeting, basically. Because she was in her, like, tennis Borg baby outfit. I forget what it was supposed to be. But Bojack was the only one who saw it and immediately got what it was supposed to be. Even though they didn't know each other. Like, they've always, again, they're the closest friends, even though they also hate each other, as Diane mentioned, where it's like, even though, I mean, hate each other is strong, but, like, at points, they definitely, did, like, but, Diane would still, like, look out for her friend, even though, those feelings were there. But, they did have this understanding, and so I guess, like, the two ways I could possibly see the ending is, because they're just sitting there in silence. There's, like, a couple moments where, at least one moment where I feel like Diane was about to say something, but she decided not to. And, like, it's either that they do still understand each other, and, like, because the song is even it's like what someone might say to it's Mr. Blue, right? A depressed person. So it's, so maybe it's, like, understood feelings between them, or maybe it's just that they've drifted apart and they don't have anything more that they can say to the other, because they no longer, their lives have changed. They've changed so much as people that they no longer need each other as friends, I guess you could also say. God, yeah, it's a really fucking good show. It's well written. The voice acting is great. The character animation is great. The presentation, a lot of interesting stuff. Like, I'm very glad this show exists. It is probably one of my favorite cartoons, but it's, it doesn't quite, I don't know, it's not quite personally there yet to be, like, an all-time favorite thing, but I'm still very glad I watched it. I've been interested in it for a long time, and it's so good.